Welcome everyone to The Racist War, broadcasting to you on this chilly Tuesday evening here in Perth. And I think this is the first time in a while that we have done a show after exactly 7 days. So we're glad to be with you on time for a change.
We out here in that heroin coma.
Yeah, that's right. How are you, Nolsey? You been watching the Olympics?
No, I mean, I saw that one Turkish dude. That's pretty much all that caught my attention. Oh, that and that one fucking boxer's like, oh god, they're not a man, they're like intersex and like stuff. And yeah, they wore a cup and stuff, but like, they're still like a woman and like you're spreading misinformation. Yeah, like fuck off, nigga.
Yeah, I did hear about the boxer. And, I mean, she does kind of look like a man. I don't think that's the first time this has happened before. Like, they are born female, though. They're not trannies or something. They're actually people who were assigned as female at birth. But then later on...
Some people's... I don't know if there's a Borzo screenshot of this, but it may have been a Borzo screenshot. Borzo's going to get mauled by a bear in the future. I know it in my bones. But, basically, like, there was a photo of that thing with installing a cup.
Okay, so what? So, like, we're to presume that she's got balls, literally.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's registered as intersex. So not like, identifies as a woman, identifies as a man, but like after blood testing, etc., intersex, which is also like, Yeah.
They said this about some like African woman who was a sprinter, I think. And like she looked like a man, even though she was, signed female at birth. But they said that after they did the testing on her, they said that it was likely that she had internal testicles, which would mean...
Yeah, underdeveloped internal testes. And it's basically like if they fucking did like a full-on scan on her, they would have found it, because you physically can't get to a certain concentration of testosterone in a woman, like genetic freak or not, without the actual testicles to produce it. The standard hormone production of female genitalia is female sex organs cannot sustain a level of testosterone above 7% for an extended period of time without basically going into shock failure.
A lot more about this. I do. I definitely don't know all those little details.
Either they have presenting balls and they're doing a tuck thing, or they've got underdeveloped internal ones, which is found at birth, basically. And it means that, a lot of their cells or nearly all of them, basically, because intersex people are men. They might look effeminate a little bit, but they're men. Just because, you know how like the human fetus develops, right?
Yeah. In fact, like I did this thing on Cultured Bogans. We did a 3-part episode called The Gender Trap. I did it with Soap Merchant. And we talked about this, about how like, it isn't it like we're all actually, we start off female and then like...
But then we get better.
Yeah, you could put it that way. And that like, they like the vagina literally turns into a penis during the, the formation of the fetus.
Yeah. So basically, so intersex people are just men normally. They might be slightly more effeminate. They might have like slightly more like testosterone and estrogen in their system. But there's on the cellular level, the proteins that are getting read are the ones constructing the male version of their cells. So they're dudes.
Okay. I was actually wondering if you caught Raygun's performance in breakdance.
That was fucking cringe.
What the fuck? I saw it earlier. Apparently, she was incorporating a Australian culture into it by doing like kangaroo poses. I thought she was doing a praying mantis when I saw those still shots. But like, what's interesting about this woman is she's a 36-year-old lecturer. She's an academic, and her thesis, PhD, was in gender roles in breakdancing. And somehow, apparently, she was the best Australia had to offer in terms of competing in breakdancing. I never knew breakdancing was a bloody sport, by the way. I thought it is, well,
Dude,
a dance.
I've seen a meth head fucking. I've seen a meth head geeking out in the beans that had more fucking, composure and choreography than she did.
Yeah, I mean, it was just laughable. I mean, not that I can dance, but, I'm not there competing in the Olympics. And then, like, Albo says it's all about participation. No, it's not. The Olympics is about the best of the best, isn't it? Isn't that the whole point of it? You literally have the world's best athletes competing with each other. Participation is like something that, you congratulate a kid for playing footy when he didn't really want to.
Yeah.
Like, not someone like representing the country on the world stage. A little different. Anyway, I'm actually kind of glad she's a laughing stock, because it means like we're pointing and laughing at like how ridiculous academia can be. And
Yeah,
like, why is it?
during American hours on Twitter, I saw this post floating around saying like now Steve Irwin dying is the second worst thing to happen to Australia.
Yeah, she was mocked on Jimmy Kimmel, and the Americans are loving it. The fact that we so thoroughly embarrassed ourselves with that woman.
We got some complaints from America. Apparently when they opened the box of the show, I was listening to an audio clip on Telegram. And if you're fucking listening to this, I'm talking about you, motherfucker. Yes, I do listen to those things. He was like, oh yeah, like open the box of the Australian podcast, expect it to be shitposty. No, actually get serious content, very, very straightforward and educational content. Apparently I only get a joke out every 30 minutes. So yeah, like, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that like your view of Australia comes from a drunk retard.
Yeah, and people who listen to us are only looking for very serious commentary as well. I have a stick up my ass, apparently. I need to pull it out. But, okay, anyway.
The stick up my ass is called my backbone. It's called my spine.
All right, so look, we should get on with the show's content, and I think we actually finished up the last episode with a discussion on so-called extremism and national security. While we were, I think when we did that episode, that was actually the day that the terror alert level in Australia went from possible to probable, or you could say went to fridge magnet level. So, and that didn't quite make it into my prep at the time. So I guess we just want to comment on that a little bit today, and also the fact that Mike Burgess, the head of ASIO, was doing the media rounds. I caught his interview on 7:30 and on Insiders on Sunday, talking about precisely why they have lifted the level from possible to probable. And, not a big surprise that he said that this is in the wake of October 7th and the reactions to it. So, look, from that, I can only assume that he's talking about Islamic extremism, considering the fact that, even though for maybe a little while, when white nationalists made up 50% of the ASIO caseload, and by the way, he cites that figure himself on the 7:30 interview, if you want to go watch that. There was this brief moment of time where more money in terms of intelligence and national security was being spent on monitoring white nationalists than it was on Sunni extremists, Shia extremists, Antifa, other radical left, like communist groups and everything like that. We were actually getting more surveillance, more scrutiny, more attention than all of those other groups. Amazingly. Now,
Yeah.
we're not anymore though. Now, like he didn't say it outright, but I mean, what else could he actually be talking about when he says that, like, tensions are simmering and rising, and people's passions are being ignited and everything? He could only possibly be talking about uh, Islamic terror, because even if they thought there was such thing as Jewish terror, I can't imagine Mike Burgess actually talking about that. And, that's not me suggesting there are Jewish terrorist cells or anything like that, but Jews are definitely not um, immune from committing acts like that themselves. Uh, the State of Israel was founded upon Jewish terrorism in the Middle East,
Yes.
essentially. Anyway, I do digress there.
Illegal immigration, terrorism, espionage, poisonings, and notably bombings, and the partisan targeting of state officers.
Right, and also, can I just remind people of the firebombing that happened on that burger franchise that was owned by a Palestinian activist? And amazingly, like we were told as soon as it happened, that it was not politically motivated and it had no links. It was like, hold on, like the fire has barely even gone out, and you're telling us that already? That it is not politically motivated? How dare you think that someone, politically motivated could go out and actually do such a thing? Even though,
again, like say it with me, Finian. No political motive. No political motive. No terror motive. No known motive.
no. So look, that's also why I say, like, yeah, no, the idea of like Jewish terrorism is not something that you should assume just doesn't exist at all. True Jews are usually a little bit more clever when it comes to their evolutionary strategy, and they prefer to get other people to do their dirty work for them, and they work through subversive means rather than through direct violence most of the time. But still, I'd really like to know, what ASIO thought about that firebombing on the burger place, and if we really do have, like, say, radical Jewish elements, like like the Jewish Defense League, who like were trying to actually blow up Lebanese mosques in America, for example. If we maybe have some kind of element like that going on in Australia, be interesting. But look, I actually found the most interesting part of the interview that he did on 7:30 was when he did talk about neo-Nazi groups, as they like to call us, or far right or right-wing extremists or whatever. He said that these neo-Nazi groups, as he puts it, are focused on recruitment, and lone wolf actors who may have extremist or violent motives themselves are not attracted to those groups because of their moderation. That was the word he used, moderation. I'm paraphrasing the rest of it. But he actually, I don't know if he did this accidentally or not, but he basically said, look, these groups that you call neo-Nazis are recruiting people, training, engaging in various forms of political activism, but they are not planning any forms of violent attack. So much so that if there are so-called neo-Nazis out there who do want to go out and commit violent acts or plan them, they're not joining these groups because they don't do activities like that.
Jesus Christ, Finian, you heard it right there. they're all de-radicalization programs. You need to leave your local organization because, just doing random stochastic terrorism is going to have a better long-term effect than actually, say, building up networks and, pools of interests and pools of capital. Oh, yeah, like stochastic terrorism is just going to, have a better outcome. I am joking, by the way. That is complete and utter sarcasm.
Right. Now, look, if you want to, let's say if you define radicalism like purely in terms of like, do you support violence or not? When you somewhat facetiously referred to those groups as de-radicalization programs. Well, in that way, that I think that's true. Or how Mike Burgess terms it, moderation. Because we actually say to guys out there who may be, feeling a bit bleak about the future, all is not lost. You can join a community and you can have your own like little white world among this community. And, that at least makes the future look better and discourages people from going out and going to extremes and just thinking, well, all is lost. Maybe all we have left is to take up arms. We're actually saying to them, well, no. We think that there is a way through politics and through community organizing that can make the future look better. And yeah, that is a de-radicalization program in a way, or a force of moderation. And Mike
Plus,
Burgess,
like, you guys are much more precious to me, much too precious to me to see you dead or in jail. Like, yeah, I don't want to see that. I'd rather see you actually like fucking thriving in your own life. Basically, because if we do that collectively, then we don't really have to worry about the external forces.
You are much better off to our movement if you're a functional member of society who saves money, raises a family, etc. Lives actually a pretty normal life, but also engages in organizing on your downtime. That's, what I encourage all Australian nationalists basically to do. So yeah, I look forward to more comments like that from Mike Burgess in the future. Okay. So staying on the topic of national security, there are calls to basically expel Iran's envoy here in Australia, the ambassador, because it turns out...
Yeah, they're getting rid of Miss Sufi?
Well, no. What's this guy's name again? Oh, God. How am I going to pronounce this? Well, look, you know what he said? He referred to Israel as a Zionist plague. And he also described Hamas's commitment to wiping out Israel by 2027 as a heavenly and divine promise. So this was
okay.
actually...
I mean, he's not an ambassador, so he doesn't quote unquote on paper get the privileges of saying that. But like, he's an envoy. What is an envoy? A step down from an ambassador. So like, and what purpose is he here for? Oh, it's to do this kind of stuff. Like, shouldn't he be given those kinds of clemencies? Oh wait, he could have said that about any other country except the one he said it about.
Yeah. So, sorry, let me just find this guy's name again. He was the ambassador, Ahmed.
Oh, he's the ambassador. Okay, so he should be extended these fucking protections.
Yeah, well, look, something that Mike Burgess said, right? Because he, by the time he made it onto Insiders, he was commenting on this, and he was saying that like he gets diplomatic immunity, which makes sense. He's a diplomat, and otherwise he would probably be breaking race hate laws in Australia. He may well be violating the federal law under Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act, and probably some state law as well. You would assume, considering we all have our backup legislation should 18C fail. So yeah, and for it's rare, I guess, for a security boss to be commenting on matters of diplomacy, But he just said that, this doesn't help. He's like, these are silly, ill-considered comments that certainly don't serve to bring the tension down, especially in an environment where social cohesion in Australia is so under
At
threat.
an all-time fucking low. Oh, dude, I heard fucking Brigitte being used as a slur in public, and not by a white person.
Really? Okay.
Yep, I saw a tiny little fucking Pinoy woman fucking screamed at it. Some fucking like Indian what was it, like those little like trolley cart things? It's like the ones, the motorized ones. They nearly ran her down. She screamed fucking Brigitte. So yeah, they've got an N word now, which is great. Feel free to use it. Make sure to use it early and often. It's just someone's name, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, that sort of allows you to get away with it because it's just, a person's name. But yeah, we don't use the other ones anymore, like curry muncher and that. Like, that's really fallen out of favor. I still think street shitter is probably the best one.
Yeah,
Although that's a little
it's the most accurate, unfortunately. Like that one woman who got fucking censored on the internet because she literally showed footage of the front of her beachfront property, and certain crowds going to town.
Okay, so Labor is being associated somewhat with these comments that were made by the Iranian ambassador. And the reason for that is because over in New South Wales, you've got Shaukat Moslemain, who the Australian describes as an ALP stalwart. He has apparently dined and had private meetings with Ambassador Sadeghi, or however the hell you say his name. And Shaukat Moslemain is actually a guy who tried to replace Linda Burney in the seat of Barton. He tried to get pre-selection for Labor in that safe seat, but failed, obviously. Now, Linda Burney, remember, is leaving at the next election. So it'll be interesting to see if he tries his luck again in the seat of Barton. But yeah, look, another classic example of how, you've got so many Muslims in the Labor Party, like mainly in New South Wales, because they come from Western Sydney. But, it's not actually just the rank and file membership. You're seeing that at least at the state level, more Muslims are rising through the ranks. And still, in the federal level, you've obviously got Fatima Payman, who broke away. You've got, what's her name, Anne Ali, and you've got Ed Husick. Ed Husick, of course, he's a Bosnian Muslim, so you wouldn't expect him to be too radical, although he was the first minister to be sworn in on the Quran.
What the fuck is with Bosnia? Like, oh god. Actually, I remember this one joke about Bosnians. It's like there was this guy with a Bosnian flag on Twitter going on about like how cats, are destructive to the environment. They're not native to Europe. And then someone with a Serbian flag on their profile picture says, well, neither are Bosnians, but we keep you around anyway.
Oh, mind. No, look, I've known Bosnians and I've never had any problem with them. And,
are they European?
Yeah, they've always looked white to me. The ones I've known, I've never thought, that's not a white
to me.
And also, like, they've only ever, like, the ones I've met have either been, like, atheists or they're just, like, very nominal Muslims. They don't take it seriously at all, Anyway. So, also, regarding travel, Qantas's service between Perth and London is being rerouted through Singapore. It used to fly over the Middle East. It's no longer doing so. And that's because of, all of us being on edge over possible Lebanese and Iranian counterattacks on Israel. following those two assassination attempts. Sorry, not attempts. They were successes, weren't they? They took out
I think
the.
you said it wrong. We weren't on edge. We've been edging,
Oh
waiting for
yes,
a counterattack on Israel.
well, yeah, it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. I mean, they took out the number 2 guy of Hezbollah, and they took out the number 1 guy in Hamas. And that guy in Hamas, like that was done in such a style of humiliation because it was done in Tehran on the eve of the inauguration of the new president. And, he was there to be at that inauguration. And apparently, like Mossad agents actually snuck into where he was staying and planted a bomb. How the fuck they did that, I have no idea. And they also took out one of his adjutants who was like a chief negotiator in the whole process. And I mean, what's ironic about it is that the guy they've replaced in Hamas is said to be even more hardline and less susceptible to negotiations and calling for a ceasefire. So anyway, I'm off doing a Ryan Dawson now. I'm kind of straying from what I was supposed to be doing. But yeah, anyway, look out for further disruptions to your everyday life as we keep edging further and further to all-out conflict in the Middle East.
I'm edging for conflict in the Middle East.
I only found out what that bloody term is.
Because you're fucking, you're out of the cultural loop, especially when it comes to degenerate shit like that. When I'm right smack bang in the fucking middle of it.
That's the thing. I got to say, I don't really mind being out of that loop.
Oh yeah, trust me. It hurts your soul eventually. You can only watch so many Axel and Harlem edits until you just start asking yourself, why are you here?
Okay, so we remember that Russian-Australian couple who have been arrested. So you've got 40-year-old Kira Korolev. So she was an army private in the ADF. And then you've got her husband, the 62-year-old Igor. They're both accused of accessing classified ADF information with the intent of providing that to Russian authorities. So they were obviously arrested, raided, electronic devices taken and everything like that. Now, the Criminal Assets Confiscation Task Force is looking to confiscate their property. So that includes their apartment and their entire life savings. So
they're hiding our fucking really bad security leaks in the walls.
Yeah. Now, they have this power, this body, under the Proceeds of Crime Act 2002. So this is property totaling over $500,000 worth. And wow, it's just kind of a crazy thought. Like the government can just step in and just steal everything from you like that. So wow, yeah, they're not fucking around with these
$500,000 isn't a lot for a property, especially these days.
Yeah, I thought it would be more than that. But yeah, apparently that was it.
Yeah, all they need.
Okay, and finally on national security. Oh God. I recently learned that the maverick Liberal Senator Alex Antic from South Australia, he has a podcast, and his podcast is called Based. Now, I hate how the alt-right or the, whatever the hell you want to call them, that I guess you could kind of say Alex Antic is a member of, he's spoken at CPAC and stuff like that. They take on like the memes that white nationalists used like 7 years ago, and then they just try to rebrand them as their own.
Yeah, if there's any sticky words in there, they'll take them away. It's like Jesus Christ, man. Like if you're trying to make up, some decent stuff, like make it a little spicy. Come on, add some Add some flavor to that, like your milk toast fucking racism.
So the reason I mention this is because on his podcast called Based, Alex Antic interviewed a behavioral psychologist, Dr. Robert Epstein, and he
Oh
said
Jesus!
he says he has no doubt that Google is manipulating Australia's elections by subtly biasing search engine results to encourage support for Google's favored candidates and political views. That, not a surprise, that leans leftward.
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't need Robert Epstein, behavioral psychologist, to tell you that one.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like, do you think Miss Dr. Epstein has had some hands-on contact with this behavioral psychology, especially in young subjects?
Yeah, quite possibly.
Just ruminating here, just ruminating, coming up with ideas. They call me an ideas man.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I guess stuff like this still is important to bring up in, I couldn't believe, but like sometimes I watch this guy called Tom Hartman in he does like progressive talk radio in America, and he's still actually going with the line that Russia manipulated the 2016 election. He's still saying that. And, they don't outright say that Russia hacked the election, because that's just ridiculous. But they will say things like...
They said it to begin with.
Huh?
They said to begin with, and that was one of the things. Like, as soon as like everyone figured out about, what was it, Agent Christopher Steele or some shit like that, like the world's most made up fucking name. They were saying like, it was hacked. No, so it was controlled, hacked, interfered, gerrymandered, influenced. And it's like, well, I influenced the fucking American elections by fucking like shit posting on Twitter relentlessly in 2016.
If you're talking about simply posting things on the internet or manipulating search results or bots or whatever it is, every single election in the world would be interfered with some way by a foreign agent. Every single election.
You heard the butterfly effect, motherfucker?
Yeah. All right. Now, this Robert Epstein, he said that, well, I'll read his quote here. He said, Australia has no monitoring system. The European Union has no monitoring system. If anyone at Google in Australia has any political interest in Australia, I have no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that they are manipulating your elections. So he's saying that we need to actually come up with, like the government itself needs to come up with some form of monitoring system to stop them from doing that. Man, you got no hope of getting Google to alter its algorithms in that way. It's like, it's amazing just like how powerful of a search engine Google is, while at the same time being so unreliable because of its self-censorship. It's amazing how it can be both of those things at the same time.
Yeah. Google really sucks at telling me when I'm in my deepest, darkest moments, my true moments of need. Google really sucks at telling me how to off myself in the next 15 seconds. But Bing, on the other hand, Bing's got your answers.
Yeah, I find, even though Bing is Microsoft, I remember for a while, a lot of people were spruiking DuckDuckGo. I never found that to be a good search engine. I just found that the results never kind of narrowed in to what you wanted. Even though Bing is still Microsoft, it's still a tech giant or whatever. Yeah, I do find that generally
because no one gives a shit.
Yeah,
no one gives a shit. No one uses it. No one gives a shit. So it's like, yeah, we just put together a search engine, just let it fucking roll.
All right, yeah, and I mean, kind of like by Google's own like self-sabotage through their self-censoring algorithms, Bing became the best one, due to Google shooting themselves in the foot. Okay, so let's move on to defense. Now, Paul Keating came out of the woodwork, as he likes to do every few months, and he only ever...
Not out of the closet?
Well, he still lives in Potts Point. Those rumors will circulate till the day he dies. But yeah, I mean, look, he only ever emerges to talk about superannuation or uh, China, like in terms of Australia's foreign relations with Asian countries, particularly China. So he caused a bit of a stir here by going after AUKUS. We got some other news on AUKUS as well after this. But he said he was on 7:30. He gave an extended interview, and he said that Australia is risking looking like the 51st state of America. And I was like, I don't know, Paul. I think we reached that quite a long time ago. And your old boss Bob Hawke brought us into the first Gulf War. Remember? So, yeah.
We could have had like mild relations with like everyone in Oceania and just been like just an export economy and then everything would have been fine. But no, we have to become geopolitically retarded and like literally saber rattle against our biggest trading partner.
Yeah. Now, look, on that, he's got a point, though. I mean, like, AUKUS is basically like just sort of formalizing our position as the 51st state of America. But, we were always there.
It's been there for a hot minute.
Right. So, he said that, we shouldn't be terrified of, a Red Scare from China. He says it is not the geopolitical threat that we often perceive it to be. It is a vital trading partner. It can, if we have more trade, more open trade with China, we could benefit from that even more. Don't know if I quite agree with him on that one. I think we already have plenty with China. But he also just said, look, what's the point in jumping in on all of these territorial disputes like Taiwan, Hong Kong, Spratly Islands, etc. And he actually even went so far as to say that Taiwan is Chinese real estate. He said, what this is all about is the Chinese laying claim to Taiwan, and the Americans are going to say, no, we're going to keep these Taiwanese people protected, even though they're sitting on Chinese real estate. So there we go. These sentiments obviously were not, agreed upon by Penny Wong. And even Nancy Pelosi came out and condemned these comments by Paul Keating. Very interesting.
What? I guess we got a domestic cunt and a foreign cunt says that Paul Keating's comments are fucking okay. For stars, I mean they came out of his cock holster. That's condemnable in itself. But like, all right, but functionally, where is he wrong?
He's not.
Yeah.
Now, like a different question. If he was still prime minister, would he have done things differently? I doubt it. I mean,
fuck no.
All he would have done, he would have sold off more of our national sovereignty, perhaps not to America, but to the Asia Pacific instead.
If he had his way, yeah. I mean,
politically speaking, Paul Keating had the worst yellow fever out of any one of our prime ministers, even Kevin Rudd.
Oh yeah, and he spoke Mandarin, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, like okay, so like Asian languages in general, there's like some jungle languages that are very easy to learn. Japanese is pretty easy to learn. Korean, a little bit more guttural, but still easy to learn. You have to put in effort for Mandarin because it's such a Mandarin, Cantonese, and whatever the fuck the third one is, because they are just so fucked up. Those languages are just fucked. Tonal languages are just completely and utterly fucked.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. I have no idea. I've never studied it.
Okay, want an example? Want an example? In Mandarin, by the way. So 2 sentences. Nigema. It means what the hell are you doing? Nigema. It means why are you fucking a horse? Did you hear the difference? I put emphasis on a different part of 2 words.
I haven't heard that about the language yet. That sounded more like a dialects of Noongar to me, to be honest.
Where do you think they started fabricating them from in the modern age?
Right. Okay, so like, what's actually going on with AUKUS at the moment? Well, the partners, which of course, it's Australia, the UK, and America, they have apparently struck a revamped agreement, and that allows the transfer of US and UK naval nuclear material to Australia. And it just means, like, you have more circulation of US and UK Navy vehicles. As very often, they like to do. They like to dock in Frio and then come out, and all the guys in uniform hit the clubs and
Yep.
screw Australian women,
Or
as
men.
they love to do. Yeah, and men too. Well, they're from the Navy, aren't they? So now, what happened, of course, here when we're talking about uh, nuclear material, naval nuclear material making its way around Australia. That immediately led people to say, well, are they talking about nuclear waste here? After all, when you have nuclear powered vehicles, they still have to store their nuclear waste somewhere. So, our Defence Minister, Richard Marles, said no. He said that this is purely to do with the circulation of vehicles. The revamped agreement does not obligate Australia to take any form of nuclear waste. I must stress, though, he also did not rule out taking any nuclear waste from the UK and the US as well. I would just say, as I have before, that I actually wouldn't give a shit if we did. The only issue right now is that we're not, like, the nuclear waste that we do store, which I think is only one facility at the moment, is not the
Yep.
best place of doing it. The best place of doing it would be Central Australia, where
Yeah,
no
it'd be
one lives.
basically like honestly, it'd be a used up mineral sands mine. Because that area is like it's not only just uninhabitable if you do the plan where you flood the middle of Australia or if you irrigate it, like literally the soil is just has too low of a organic component to actually even like keep water, hold water, and hydrate to support plant life. Uh, and yeah, I mean, when you're talking about naval nuclear vehicles and etc., you're talking about a sarcophagus. They're already pre-installed in a sarcophagus. They're basically just a battery. It's a big block with wires coming out of it, and that's it.
Yeah, like, in terms of the environmental threat that waste would pose, it's basically zero.
Dick all. Yeah, like when it's okay, so basically in its prime, when it has the most energy density, when it is radiating the most, people still serve on board a vessel with it, living in close proximity with it for months, if not in some instances with some submarines, years at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, like what
All right.
do you think
And
everyone that comes off one of those fucking dies of cancer? No.
no, of course not. All right. So, just lastly on defense, we are also about to sign a new bilateral security agreement with Indonesia. So, this is designed to run in tandem with the inauguration of a new president. Oh, God, Prabowo Subianto. I only just got used to pronouncing the name of the last cunt who was in, Joko Widodo. So now I've got to learn a new one already. Um, but anyway, look, not really anything uh, in terms of detail has been put out here. It'll just include the usual stuff, which is we give a bunch of so-called aid money to Indonesia, and they help patrol our waters to stop people smugglers from turning up on the northwest of Australia, as they like doing every now and then. So that's usually what a security pact is with Indonesia. Uh, yeah, and that's about it. So I wouldn't expect anything else from it. Okay,
Yeah.
let's now go to the Israel-Gaza conflict. Now, last week we mentioned that a report had been released concerning uh, the aerial bombardment of an aid convoy that happened on the 1st of April. So that was where you had the Australian citizen Zomi Francom killed in that airstrike, as well as a bunch of other aid workers and security personnel,
Mm.
I believe, as well. Now, we mentioned that the report basically said it was an accident. They said that there was a series of intelligence failures that the IDF committed, and so basically it was confirming what Israel had just said about the matter right from the beginning, which was, look, we're sorry, but it was an accident. Now, the Israeli embassy is actually now accusing the current government of misrepresenting the findings of that report, which, by the way, was actually put together by an Israeli government appointed advisor. So, take from that what you will. Um, so, Penny Wong did actually, surprisingly, she had the spine to come out and say that the attack was intentional. Now, I don't know if she's actually saying like the IDF deliberately targeted aid workers. If she did, she would be completely accurate in her description.
Yep.
But, she might still be
Hey, we
saying,
did
look,
some bogus fucking self-investigation and found ourselves completely goddamn fucking innocent. Why didn't you run with the narrative that we put out, which is very obviously false and wouldn't be actually taken seriously by any party if it was any other group, government, or organization doing a self-review?
yeah.
I hate these fucking
Okay,
people. People? Shit, I called them people.
so this guy, the guy who put together the report, he's a former defense chief. His name is Mark Binskin. That's an unusual
What?
name. Binskin. Yeah, Binskin. Binskin. Okay. That sounds like a new slur. I don't know how to apply it, but it sounds like some kind of slur. Binskin.
Binskin.
So anyway, I got to read out this bit. He said the report identified there were armed men in the convoy that gave the appearance of the presence of Hamas and could not rule out that the aid group had inadvertently hired security guards with links to the terrorist group. Okay, so you get that? He's saying that, okay, some of the security that they were carrying along with them in the convoy looked like they might have been from Hamas. So hold on. That means then that you're allowed to just go and fucking drone strike them and blow them all up because some of them you think might be terrorists. It doesn't matter the fact that they're entrenched in a convoy of aid workers. That doesn't matter at all. You just see one guy who you think maybe is from Hamas. We can just blow up that entire area now and all the civilians there with him. Is that what Mr. Binskin is telling us?
Yes.
Now, further to that, if they had inadvertently picked up these guys, like accidentally, and they turned out to be from Hamas, is that a reason, like, for you to like sign your own death warrant? I mean, was this like, is he saying this is a form of suicide or something? You made this one little security mistake, therefore we should be able to just blow you to pieces. Fuck off.
Yeah, apparently is. Apparently he's fucking
Every
saying
time
that. I
I
don't
hear
know.
more about this
Are you
fucking
reading it
story,
different?
I've never been enraged over the death of a half Bajit as much as I am over this. Okay. All right, so I mentioned Ed Huzik earlier, the Bosnian Muslim, first minister to be sworn in on the Quran. Now, he has actually said that the Labour Party should be open to the idea of sanctioning the Israeli government itself. So we did mention last week the Australian government decided to sanction 7 individuals, and they're from this group called Hilltop Youths, which no is not like a Aussie hip hop band or something. It's to do with radical settlers in the West Bank that take up arms against Arabs in the area.
Hilltop Youths.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
What they call. So
why can't we have our ethnic cleansing youth squads? What the fuck?
So yeah, there was some band called Binskin and the Hilltop Youths. That sounds catchy.
Binskin and the oh Jesus Christ! That's How I Skinned an Arab Alive. Their first LP.
Oh Jesus. So anyway, 7 of them, they had financial sanctions and travel restrictions placed upon them by the Australian government. And Ed Husick was asked about this, the Australian government's stance on sanctions, and said, well, look, would the Australian government take that extra step and actually go after the Israeli government, considering all of the war atrocities they're currently committing and have been committing for months now in Gaza? And yeah, he said that Australia should be open to that idea. Now, this has turned the Australian Jewish lobby into a complete frenzy. So the Zionist Federation of Australia, their president, Jeremy Liebler, said that Mr. Husick had shown a complete lack of moral clarity and an inability to differentiate between prescribed terrorist organizations and Israel. So he called on the Labor Party to publicly condemn him and censure him, which is, kind of an official way of saying we disagree with you and bad boy.
For those without cringe, cast the first stone.
So as far as I know, no comment yet. And, this is just following a pretty typical Labor tactic, or at least what federal Labor is doing, which is throwing out little kind of rhetorical sound bites every now and then, like being open to the idea of of sanctions against the Israeli government. Not going as far as to condemn the comments from, ministers who might have walked off the path a little bit. But at the same time, changing nothing at a policy level, just throwing out little sound bites in the hopes that it might appease the voters out in Western Sydney. And I don't think it is, though. That's the funny thing. Labor is just walking this ridiculous middle ground that serves to piss everyone off.
Yeah, well, now they want to be left leaning people, right? And there's like I will chastely admit this, a grassroots movement of the left to be anti-Israel, but also they serve their own masters. It's the ultimate rock and a hard place for a established or mainstream left leaning party.
Yep. Well, the other established left-leaning party is the Greens, of course, and they have said that with the return of Parliament, which I think was today, actually, they're urging the Albanese government to sanction both the Israeli government and Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm not sure if they're going as far to say as arrest him, because, is it the International Criminal Court? They have that arrest warrant out on him, which does mean, if you're a signatory to that, if Benjamin Netanyahu were to travel to one of those countries that's a signatory, they would be expected to arrest him. Zero chance of, the Australian government doing that. Not that Bibi would be planning to visit us anytime soon. I mean, what the hell would he care? He'd be fine with sending their African refugees over here.
Oh yeah.
But besides that,
need him.
Real Australians. And look, Sky News are still going crazy calling the Greens anti-Semitic and the new face of anti-Semitism in Australia. Okay, now over in Sydney, we mentioned this meeting last week. So this was by the Randwick Mayor, Philippa Weich. She was actually a member of the Greens, and she gave an inflammatory speech, basically calling Israel a terrorist state. That upset some councillors there, one of which was a Liberal Party councillor named Daniel Rosenfeld. He went so far as to say he didn't feel safe. They do this all the time, you know. It's like
I don't feel safe in this community. It's when you want to be nebulous. They say that when they want to be nebulous, they don't actually want to identify a threat. Fenium, can you identify a threat to our community right now?
I could identify plenty, and I could definitely.
Could you explain them?
Well,
in detail. Yes, we can.
Well,
it's literally migration of violent fucking individuals into our community. Not even just for ethnic reasons, for criminal reasons, notarized criminal reasons, over persecution by state authorities, fucking basically like forced poverty by black letter writing in company policies about our ability to be employed. We don't need to be nebulous. We can be exact about what troubles us. We don't have to say we don't feel safe in the community. We can tell you exactly what our problem is.
Well, look, on the bright side, some of them have even said that they feel so unsafe that they're considering moving to Israel. And one example, I'm sure you saw this story, the guy who took newspaper articles to an office works to get them laminated. And he was refused because what he was seeking to get laminated was actually from Australian Jewish News. And it was all like, pro-Israel, bomb Hamas, bomb Gaza propaganda, essentially. And there was some...
It's a private company, man. They don't need to host your hate speech in their lamination machine.
Yeah. That's right.
It's a private company. How many times have we heard that over the past fucking now up to a decade at this point?
So look, he's actually now like taking out a discrimination suit against Officeworks, and he also said that the whole incident made him feel so unsafe that he's considering moving his entire family to Israel, all because they wouldn't laminate his newspaper articles. So anyway, in this case here, at this Sydney Council, where Philippa Weich from the Greens is mayor, when she did the speech, the Liberal councillor Daniel Rosenfeld said that he felt under threat. He felt that he was not safe. And that led to extra security detail being rolled out at further council meetings. Now, there was also a motion for a no confidence vote for the mayor, Philippa Weich, due to these, inflammatory speeches that she had been making. That was defeated. But it was also amended to be a general motion condemning anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, and acknowledging the council's role in promoting community cohesion. Oh my God, guys, you can't promote community. You cannot promote
what community?
Social cohesion.
What cohesion?
Because you're talking about like a number of opposing communities living in the same area. That's what you've got.
Nominally, nominally, white nationalists share either really basically at furthest close ethnic ties and phylum and etc. and communities and brotherhood and sisterhood and etc. And we're still at each other's throats. What do you think's going to happen in a multi-ethnic community?
Oh God, the infighting of white nationalism! What a terrible thing it is. Save your energy for your real enemies, guys. If you're one of those people who likes nitpicking other nationalists. Anyway, yeah, look out for more of this stuff as well, where you're starting now to see it's not actually just political fault lines that are drawn in, say, councils or state and federal government. It's all being drawn on ethnic lines now. Like the ethnic community that you are a part of becomes your political marker, your identifier. And,
Yep.
it's often said that all politics starts from identity. And yeah, we're seeing that play out. Now, the Greens are also under fire for providing the use of office space to a group that publicly asserts Israel has no right to exist.
Wait,
So,
they approved the lease?
well, I think they just let them use the office space for free.
Well,
So
dude, I
this
haven't
is
heard shit about after my application for that space. Jesus. I think they'll get back to me sooner.
so look. This group is called Tasmanian Palestine Advocacy Network. So this is the group that apparently is using the office space provided to them by the Greens. And so they put up a Facebook post saying it is the ethical duty of every person who identifies as an Israeli to resist. Also says one of the statements, oh man, sorry, the way this is written is really shit. Leave Israel, make the settler colonial project untenable and unsustainable, denounce it, refuse to call it Israel, or any iteration that denies Palestinian existence. That was the inflammatory Facebook post that they put
Okay,
up.
well, like how many times? Okay, that's being said about your fucking little nation state, which you have to be fair here, is dropping bombs. For whatever reason, it's dropping bombs on people. It's not very nice. Not a very nice thing to do. Yeah, like how many times have you heard that about just white as a thing?
Yeah, but I mean, also like these kind of groups, what they'll tell you that they're for is they're for like a Palestinian state where Arabs and Jews can live in it. Now, I mean that is still laughable, I mean, there's precisely a reason why they draw lines between each other because they can't live in peace and harmony alongside each other. They just can't do it. But that is basically what they believe in. They want like a multiracial Palestinian democracy where they can settle differences. It's a complete
Homogayplex.
pipe dream. But
They want the
that is what
homogayplex. That's what they want.
leading groups do advocate for. It could never happen. It could never work. but that's actually what they want. They don't want to go out and like start slaughtering Jews or anything.
No.
Okay. So a religious vilification complaint has been lodged with the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Board. Now, that is against Peter Dutton. So the group that filed this is called the Alliance Against Islamophobia. And specifically, what they're talking about here was when Peter Dutton talked about the possibility of a hung parliament with a minority Labor government relying on the votes of Teals, Greens, and Muslim independents. Obviously, he was talking about, what we've come to call the Muslim vote stemming from West Sydney. So these comments were apparently have contributed to a hostile environment for Muslim Australians and are reinforcing harmful stereotypes about the Muslim community. I don't know about that. Like I just mentioned, he also targeted the Greens and the Teals in that. So like what he was getting at was that you would have this sort of like loose alliance between independents and minor parties that would be unstable and would make the administration of government difficult, as say it was under the Gillard minority government back in 2010.
Yeah.
That's what Dutton was saying right there. He wasn't saying that, like, it would be a disastrous thing for Muslims to have a voice in the political process. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean the Anti-Discrimination Board will see it that way. We'll have to wait that out. But we know that very often the bar is low for these kind of tests. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Fatima Payman, of course, the senator that left the Labor Party to sit as an independent, she has said that the Labor Party should not take her vote for granted. Now, this is a little different to what she had previously been saying, because whenever you leave a political party, you're always asked the question: have you somewhat betrayed your voter base here? Because they voted for a party, they didn't vote for you as an independent. And then they always say, oh, well, look, I still represent the values of that party. So they try and do sort of the Ronald Reagan line of, I didn't leave the party left me, is sort of what they're saying. Fatima Payman did the same thing. She was saying that she believed she was still exercising faithfully her beliefs in the principles of the Labor Party. Now she's basically saying, no, I'm just doing a conscience vote on everything, and the way I vote may not necessarily be in line with the way Labor wants me to vote. So, yeah,
she did get a lot of political will from Arabs recently.
Oh hell yeah! I mean, you saw the footage of her landing in Perth Airport.
Yeah, I've never seen so much fucking like smells like, well,
yeah, like
smells like a very certain desolate, deserty part of the world.
It was like the whole Taliban came out to welcome her back. It was amazing, and she has done a tour of 12 communities in WA over the past 12 days. And she said that she's pushing the government to secure funding for local projects. So, yeah, she was doing some good old-fashioned earmarking, I guess. Okay, Josh Frydenberg has actually just won the Monash Medal, I think it's called. So this is in honor of Sir John Monash.
Yep.
And he won this due to his I don't know. I mean, what the? Do you know what his current job is? He's a fucking executive at Goldman Sachs. I'm not kidding. So
that's nice. By God, does that job come with vanilla pudding dispensers and blowjob hookers right outside your room?
So look, he has been awarded this due to his leadership in terms of promoting democracy. Even though okay, let's name like the one other thing Frydenberg has done since leaving Parliament. That is make that bloody documentary on Sky News called oh shit, well, I can't remember what it was called now. It might have been called Never Again Is Now or something. I can't remember. But it was about
called in such small portions.
I did watch it. What a waste of fucking time. There was like nothing surprising in it. Or I guess one thing I'll say that was notably absent from that documentary, and by the way, you can watch it now. Sky News have got it for free on their YouTube channel. He mentioned two groups that are primarily responsible for the rise in anti-Semitism in Australia. One, as you can imagine, was Muslims. He didn't, he would say Islamic extremists and hate preachers. He'd couch it in words like that. But then the other group was the Green Left, the radical left. He forgot the far right, the extremist right.
No.
He left
no.
He let us credit, on hook.
God damn. I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah. Anyway, he said that this was a great honour, and he has encouraged Australians and people who love democracy around the world to defeat anti-democratic forces as we go into these turbulent times of uncertainty fueled by tensions in the Middle East. Oh, great words of wisdom there from Josh. Okay, now speaking of the Muslim
Ooh.
vote, it looks like we have our first official candidate.
I'm not pronouncing this dude's fucking name. You can have a go at it. Fuck this shit. I quit.
Ayad Bassanoin. Oh, God, I don't know.
Besanoya. Shaboying.
Zayad. I'm just going to call him Zayad, okay? Dr. Zayad.
Uh,
So he is, I think he's a general practitioner. He's a doctor anyway, from, of course, Western Sydney, southwestern Sydney.
I was going to
Um,
ask, did you beat Dr. Zayed in the original Crash Bandicoot?
oh my God, man. What's his name? Is it
Dr. Neuron
Zortex?
or whatever the fuck, man? I don't fucking know. All I know is that
I
Spyro radicalized me.
I remember I did have Crash Bandicoot 3 when I had a PlayStation. I don't think I played the first two. Anyway, Dr. Zayad, he's actually been a guy who has for a long time been seen as a somewhat of a community leader. So it made sense to kind of turn for him. And he, had been like encouraged to run for parliament for a long time preceding the Muslim vote, or before October 7 and all of that. Now, worth pointing out though that I should just point out he is running for the seat of Watson, which is the seat of Tony Burke. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I know that Tony Burke's seat is one of those seats that has 30% or so Muslim population. Big, like Lebanese community there.
Yes.
And Tony Burke is a senior minister. He's, about as high up in Labor ranks as you can go without getting the prime ministership. So, yeah, I mean, if they would actually take this from him, that would be a big scalp. And I definitely think it's doable. Look at how many people are willing to vote on ethnic lines. Remember how Dai Lee was voted in over Christina Keneally. And also remember the Teals have done this themselves by ousting a lot of Liberals in blue ribbon safe Liberal seats. So absolutely it can be done. Worth pointing out that this guy is not actually officially affiliated with the Muslim vote. However, for all intents and purposes, he represents that voting bloc. So, that's what it is. And it also just kind of looks like, now that he's announced his candidacy, that the Muslim vote would therefore simply just back him. They just get behind him, endorse him, and then not worry about it running any other candidate that they may have preferred in that seat of Watson. So yeah, I'll definitely be watching that with some keen interest. And Tony Burke's seat absolutely is under threat. Okay, now last story. This is not really related to Israel and Gaza, but just sort of on anti-Semitism generally. Four Corners had an episode on last night. I haven't watched it. I will endeavour to watch it at some point. But it was about apparently the toxic work culture at Channel 7. Specifically,
oh God, yeah.
with the Spotlight program. So Spotlight, remember, is it's like their version of 60 Minutes, basically. And they did that episode with Bruce Lehrmann, where, in exchange for a year of free rent, Bruce Lehrmann gave them an exclusive interview about, obviously, the whole Brittany Higgins saga. So one of the guys who was involved in that show, Taylor Orbach, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, he was a producer and is Jewish, and apparently was subject to anti-Semitic ridicule, harassment, bullying, etc. So there were text
And what
messages.
evidence do we have of this?
So we've got
text messages.
We've got text messages that have leaked to the ABC, to Four Corners somehow. And there was some picture of him wearing a striped shirt, and someone said, "Why is he wearing the Holocaust Jim Jams?" And then, so this guy, sorry, I should point out, this guy Mark Llewellyn, he was the executive producer on Spotlight. So it's two producers who worked on Spotlight. So yeah, this Llewellyn guy, said, "Why is he wearing the Holocaust Jim Jams?" and also referred to him as Anne Frankenstein. They also talked about, now this isn't anti-Semitism, but they're talking about wanting to bash people at work. So they'd say that stuff like this. Is that you, cunt? I'm going to cave your head in, said the character in the play we are writing. The character in the play we're writing wants to bash your head in with a fucking cricket bat. Now, if you haven't picked up on it, this is their way of saying in Minecraft. They're saying in a play that I'm writing, this character in a play that I'm writing is saying this, this, and this. And then they use that to Fed post. Here's another one. Or the red pencil, or purple, or LGBTQI rainbow pencil, whichever cuts your prolix prose to digestible chunks before I cave your head in with my heavy fucking iPhone, said the character in the play we're writing. Now, if you don't know what that means, don't worry. I don't know what the fuck it means either. Generally, you're talking about kind of...
I want to be threatening and I'm gay.
Well, this is just sort of off-color office banter that often gets thrown around in the workplace. And you know what? Yeah. Sometimes ethnic jokes get made. And most of the time, actually, you find that people don't find them offensive. And in fact... this Jewish guy in question, Taylor Orbach, said that at the time he dismissed them with humor. So it doesn't sound like...
Oh, God, what happened? He kept this in his back pocket. Fucking they do all do this. They'll be like, oh, yeah, it's fine. And then they keep a little tab of it. Keep a little tab of what you've done. Yeah, well, look, apparently, damn dirty guy.
He didn't like this Llewellyn guy. He had, a falling out with him. He eventually quit Channel 7. And apparently 10 years ago, this Llewellyn guy attacked another member of Channel 7 staff, actually physically attacked him and tore his shirt. So, I don't know. Go watch the Four Corners episode, I guess, if you want to get all the details on that one. Okay, so let's move on to immigration.
Favorite subject.
14,000 workers could lose their jobs if the number of international students arriving in Australia continues to fall. Who is saying that? Well, the peak lobby for universities. So, try as they might, they apparently anyway are not convincing the government to reverse their plan to continue the decrease in the amount of foreign students that we're taking in. They're not going to lift the cap that is on the number of international students that can be enrolled or get a Student 500 visa. And the universities are still going off their heads about it. And now they're releasing all these ridiculous figures saying that it's putting 14,000 jobs at risk. How? Students are allowed to work 20 hours a week. The fuck are you talking about? They're putting people out of work. It's quite the opposite, actually. But here's some surprising numbers. Apparently, the number of student visas being approved has dropped by 23%. Last time I read out figures on this, it was 24%. So we're actually seeing some consistency here over a period of a few months. It'd be good if these just, continued indefinitely, but, don't worry. By the time after the next election, 2025, I guarantee you these student numbers will be back to normal again. Pretty much by, I would say, semester 2 of 2025. That's my bet anyway. You'll see student numbers pretty much go back to what they were. Okay. Oh, God. Sob story from the ABC here. So I'll read how this article starts out. Many members of the country's booming Chinese and South Asian migrant communities are keen to engage in the democratic system, but do not fully understand how the Australian political system works. New research has shown. So, this comes from the University of New South Wales, and going by the names of the academics here, it looks like these are, members of those Asian communities themselves. I'm not going to try to pronounce the names here. But they found about half of first-generation migrants who they surveyed lacked basic political literacy, meaning that they could be going to the polls making an uninformed choice. Oh dear. Don't worry about that. I would say most people go to the polls with fairly limited information, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. I would also just say they shouldn't be voting here in the first place. Okay, so if they're making an uninformed decision, then I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of indifferent to that. It's just, I guess I'd just be more concerned on, are they voting in their own ethnic interest, which inevitably would run against white Australian interests. And of course they are. So I don't give a shit. Okay, now, Adam Bant, if you're listening, which you're not, but take note here from what the Master Builders Association is saying. They are calling on the Albanese government to bring in more skilled migrants to the construction sector. And they say that we need to secure 500,000 skilled trade workers, foreign trade workers, if we are going to achieve Labor's target of building 1.2 million new homes. So it's that classic line.
And where are we going to house them in the interim?
Right. It's the classic line that they're taking this right out of Chris Minns's playbook, which is to actually build the houses. We need to import more foreigners. And you know what, Chris Minns and Master Builders Association? These foreigners live in houses. I know that very often they get crammed into the same fucking house where there's multiple people sleeping in the same bedroom. But nonetheless, they still need a house to live in. And this just fucking absolutely flies in the face that, like, the big end of town deliberately demonizes immigration or is opposed to mass immigration in any way. Are you fucking kidding me? They are probably the biggest drivers of it.
They're the ones with the most to gain.
They are calling for an extra 500,000 people to be brought in, which, by the way, is almost our entire net intake of migrants each year. Okay, now, not only that, but they want a simpler visa system that has lower costs for applications and faster processing times. And they have even called for a dedicated skilled visa for those trade workers to come in. So they want a new visa class for people to come in and work on construction sites.
Great.
Oh, great.
Get ready for infinity niggers and infinity Jeets and infinity Polynesians.
We're on YouTube still, Nolsey.
Shit.
I don't know how we're still there. One of us must be a Fed or something.
Of course. Anyway, so I need to get time off my trip back to see my family in Langley.
Okay, now another group that is whinging is, well, Big Agra. Now, it's always sold to us as simply rural Australia, but really it's just big agriculture, because they're the ones represented by the National Farmers Federation. Okay, if you look at the people involved. Now, of course, they've gone and commissioned their own report here, and they're saying that up to 36,000 jobs will not be filled if the government plans to go ahead with the reforms to backpacker laws. So currently, they're required, if you're a backpacker in Australia, you're required to do 88 days in a regional area where, you know, you go and you work doing fruit picking or something. They're looking to scrap that so that backpackers could just, say, work in the city or whatever. Well, look, I would much rather see these regional areas to be self-sufficient and relying on their own local labor instead of always having to rely on just importing people, getting cheap young backpackers in to do it
But
all the time.
Finian, that would mean that there'll be a growing population base of nominally white rural Australians. This is
I
simply
know.
unacceptable.
Right. And it also, as I've said before, regional Australia is often like the last place a white Australian has to run to. Yet we still want to pollute it with all these shitskins,
Infinity Jeets.
binskins.
Yep.
Why take that from them? Okay. So there is Jason Clare, who's the education minister. He's told us that he is actually continuing to crack down on dodgy training providers. So, look, assuming that he's telling the truth here, all right, I'll give the guy props. What he's talking about is these places that, they'll say that there's some kind of technical college, usually. And a lot of the time, people who are on the student 500 visas, they're registered at studying at one of these institutes when all they're doing is actually just like working a full-time job, declaring
Showing up,
21
signing a name on paper, and then leaving.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah. So the official records say that they're actually studying bloody hospitality or something at a college that doesn't even exist. So they continue to find these places. There are also a lot of them are churning out fake certificates as well, like bogus qualification and shit. And honestly, was this a problem in Australia before we had the massive foreign student trade here, the $40 billion a year industry that we have? Was things like frauding academic transcripts and that were these big issues before? I'm sure they were always happening on a small level, but why are they so pervasive now?
The lie was that, they're coming here to get an education and to go back, and everyone kind of knew, like, oh, okay, well, they're not really going back, but then, okay, they're a value-added set of, eyes and hands, so, maybe they're worthwhile, and there's some level of, like, intelligence and behavioral filter that higher education impacts on someone, so maybe even the lie that they're going back, maybe even that being false is acceptable. The fact that you now have the education itself, the IQ filter itself, the value-added system itself being a total and utter fabrication just means that we are dealing with another unskilled migrant. And better yet, a criminal and deceptive unskilled migrant.
Yep. And also, by the way, I should point out, India is the worst of the worst in that regard. And now they're setting up their own fake colleges here in Australia.
Yeah.
So no wonder Jason Clare has his hands full with that. Okay, on to the economy. Now, the coalition is considering, as part of their cost of living relief package that, we'll obviously get more details on as we lead into the election, they're contemplating the idea of what's called zonal taxation. So zonal taxation is where basically if you live in a regional area in Australia, you get taxed less. So Peter Dutton
Do we get taxed less?
Well, you know what? Like, for visa purposes, Perth and all of WA is often listed as a regional area. Did you know that? So is Adelaide.
Yeah, we covered that. That's what I was asking. Like, oh, what shit? Do we get taxed less? Shit.
So you're getting at? Okay, yeah. Because a lot of those visas,
apparently not.
They actually basically Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. Anything outside of those three cities is a regional area for a lot of visas. Like, where the requirement is like, you must live and work in a regional area. That's actually what it means. You just can't go to one of those three cities. So anyway, but that's not what Peter Dutton is talking about here. He means like, an actual regional area. And he said that there's a moral argument to that because, like, objectively speaking, cost of living pressures are, can be felt a lot more in regional areas. Now, that definitely goes, like, when it comes to everyday things like groceries and fuel, that's definitely true. It would not go for rent and mortgages, though. Like, property is not as expensive out there. So I don't know, sort of debatable in that regard. However, one point that he made, and this was definitely true, is that people in regional areas are bearing the brunt of green energy projects. And, we're just fucking steamrolling them, not even doing a proper consultation process with people living in those areas when we roll out these monstrosities like wind turbines that we just expect them to deal with. Now, my problem there, my problem with that is that then, like, you're sort of creating an argument for furthering those green projects, because then, like, if you were to do that, a future Labor government might say, oh, well, look, we're rolling out more. And people in the bush, they shouldn't be complaining because we gave them a bit of a tax cut. Like, I don't want to give them any, like, further reasoning to be able to roll out more of these projects. But anyway, it's an interesting idea. We'll see what happens.
The tax cuts won't necessarily be going to the resident itself. It would likely end up going to, say, like a
big aggro.
Well, yeah, yeah,
I know, no doubt about that. Okay, so on the health of the economy generally, Labor's current target is for growth. Their current forecast is of 1.75%. Well, the last quarter grew by 0.1%, despite the fact that we still have record immigration. So Angus Taylor has come out and said, well, quite rightly, Australia is not meeting these forecasts, that inflation is still outstripping wages. And, we're left in this position where we've got high inflation, but low growth and low wages growth all at the same time. And, in terms of a broad economic picture, it doesn't really get much worse than that. And, Labor's going to have a very tough time running on the economy in the next election, particularly if we get two things. One, interest rate rises. So Angus Taylor is actually predicting that there will be another 2 interest rate rises before the election. But the other possibility, of course, is that we go into a technical recession. Now, we've been in a per capita recession for years now. There's no doubt about that. But we may actually get a technical recession if we get 2 quarters of negative growth. Considering the last quarter was 0.1%, that's very possible. You can definitely get there. All right, let's talk about industrial relations. We are, of course, going to talk about the CFMEU. Now, a process had been underway for Fair Work Australia to appoint its own administrator to the CFMEU. This concerned the construction divisions of 4 of the branches. That would have been Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, and I think South Australia as well, because they're under the remit of the Victorian branch. Anyway, as you can imagine, the CFMEU and its National Secretary, Zachary Smith, were not cooperative. The deadline for agreeing to an administration process between Fair Work Australia and the CFMEU has since passed. Murray Watt, the new IR minister, was on 7:30 the other night and says, well, okay, now what the government has to do is actually pass legislation. In other words, it becomes the law that these 4 divisions must have an administrator appointed to them. And that means control is taken away from the CFMEU and given to independent bureaucrats, essentially. CFMEU not happy about that, as you can imagine. Now, Murray Watt said that these new laws, and remember, Parliament is sitting again now, and they expect these laws to be passed next week.
Oh
These would
boy.
actually establish these laws would establish significant penalties with retrospective effect from July 17 for any officials taking action, including destruction of documents, to frustrate or undermine the work of the administrator. And surely you can imagine that's happening right now. Like, the CFMEU has been shredding documents for a while. So these laws would actually take retrospective effect, meaning that they could actually look back before the laws were passed and said, okay, you interrupted the administration process in some way, that can land you in jail. So, he said that penalties can include a jail term of up to 2 years and a $1 million fine for an individual or a $4.6 million fine for an organization. So, that would obviously hit them pretty bad if they were hit with a fine that big.
I hope that's honestly. I've seen organizations like this shrug off like bigger fines. Like I'm not sure if fines work at this point anymore.
I mean,
we should start flogging people in public.
To an extent, I think the CFMEU sees fines for things like worksite breaches as a cost of doing business.
Yeah, because what was that big report? They got like how many thousands of fines between now and 2000?
Well, actually, I've got that. Next story. The next story is on. So these were documents that were filed in the federal court. It claims that the CFMEU has breached workplace laws 2,600 times, but this is over a period of more than 20 years. And that has accumulated fines of around $24 million. So, there you go. There are your figures.
There we fucking go.
Yeah. Now, Zachary Smith, the leader of the CFMEU, has said that the government is waging a McCarthyist witch hunt against them, and he has been directly lobbying Labor MPs to try and, scuttle these new laws that they expect to pass next week. Well, sorry, Zach, I think you've got no chance of that, okay? There's no way, after the kind of rhetoric that Murray Watt has been using, the fact that, he's threatening jail time to your members for shredding documents at the moment, there is no chance that you are going to get any Labor MP brazen enough to actually cross the floor when it comes to passing these laws. Not going to happen, mate.
We just saw one with like quote unquote the left wing moral high ground get her like proverbial dick exploded.
Yeah,
I guess, proverbial clit exploded over like literally like the smallest fucking thing.
Even like independent senators like David Pocock, who were somewhat on the CFMEU side, he's now completely turned against them, and he was saying that maybe we should bring back the ABCC and start regulating the CFMEU again and bring out the construction industry watchdog, do it all over again. Okay, now still on the CFMEU, going to the New South Wales branch. They were still somewhat featured in those articles run by 9 News. Obviously the Victorian branch was the main focus. But anyway, the second in command there, Michael Greenfield, he released a statement yesterday saying that he is leaving the role as Assistant Secretary, which is, like I said, number 2 position for New South Wales. And the big boss, Secretary of the New South Wales Division, is Darren Greenfield, and that's his dad. So they actually have a father-son team going there in the leadership of the CFMEU. Now, Darren Greenfield, he's actually been the one with the most amount of pressure to resign because, he was implicated in, these allegations of hiring bikies and whatnot as union delegates and intermediaries and so forth. John Setka, of course, resigned before the 60 Minutes program went to air. But so far, Darren Greenfield is holding on. We still don't have any word yet on whether or not he's decided to step down. But yeah, just claimed the scalp of his son so far. Okay, now moving away from the CFMEU, the Australian Federal Police are still threatening strike action at Parliament House. So we covered this briefly last week. I think they've been offered, I think it was like a 13% pay rise or something, which comparatively is pretty good.
What?
Yeah, considering other people have to make do with like 3%.
Considering people got dick?
Yeah. But you know how much they're asking for? 20%. That's like on par with bloody aged care workers. That's a huge bloody pay demand right there. But yeah, look, Parliament is back and sitting, like I said, and yeah, it looks like it could be disrupted during current sittings because the Australian Federal Police will be refusing to provide their usual security details.
Please fucking strike, for the love of God.
Please
do. Holy shit. Let me off my leash for at least, give me like 2 weeks. 2 weeks, please. Fuck me. Yes.
It could well happen. Could well happen. Okay, now the Transport Workers Union, the TWU, their Victorian leader, Mem Suleiman, he must be some kind of a fucking Slav or something. I don't know where that name might come from. He's been stood down due to allegations of bullying and harassment. So yeah, what the details on that are, I'm not exactly sure. Lastly, on Jetstar. So Jetstar workers are looking to... we're still with the Transport Workers Union here. They're looking to take advantage of Labor's recently passed same job, same pay laws. These laws essentially target the use of labour hire to run down wages. You don't directly hire your workers. Instead, you get them through some labour hire mob. And, basically it allows you to find loopholes in industrial law that allows you to pay them less. That's basically what it is.
For labour hire, you're paying about maybe 10, 15 bucks more an hour, but on the amount of overall overhead you're saving, payroll cost, etc. Yeah, dude, as long as you're not fucking using them retardedly, you are saving money and you are able to have a worker who is functionally an employee who has less rights.
Yeah. And Labor noticed this, the unions noticed this, so this had been in the works for a long time to kind of reform this sector. So the TWU is bringing Jetstar to court now, and this is to do with its cabin crew. And the cabin crew that is hired directly through Jetstar, they actually earn around 15 to 17% more than those who are hired through labour hire. So if they are successful with this action, this is through the Fair Work Commission, then that would actually mean that they would have their pay rise 15 to 17%, which is a lot. And I assume that may mean back wages too, back pay. So that would be a nice little cleanup for them. And by the way, I gotta still point out here, those who are directly hired through Jetstar, you know what they're on a year? 62K. Not much.
What the fuck?
Not much at all. Okay, and the people who are getting hired through labour hire, they're on about 53K, which is fucking nothing. How do you survive on that?
The thing is, people see labour hire and they'll see oh yeah, we're hiring a labour hire person for 42 an hour, right?
Yeah.
That's not what they get paid. They're getting paid like fucking 27.5. I think they're getting paid minimum these days, which is like depending, obviously.
You
Yeah,
can't
like
look at this and say this is like, greedy union behavior or something. You're talking about people who are getting paid fuck all.
yeah.
Okay. On to climate and energy. So I mentioned this thing called the climate trigger last week. The Labor is sort of holding off the introduction of what's often been called a green cop. So this is a new environmental regulator. It's said to be very much in the style of the EPA in America, the Environment Protection Agency, and ours would even be the same acronym. It would be Environment Protection Australia. So this is an independent body that would have the power to say, like, refer companies to police and whatnot for violating environmental laws. Now, Labor was said to have been in talks with the coalition over this to actually get some bipartisan support. They've since gone back to the drawing board and said, well, look, maybe we can do a deal with the Greens to get this through instead. Now, that just made everyone say no, because if you do it with the Greens, they'll insist on this thing called the climate trigger. Now, what that basically means is a new project that wants to get up and running, like a gas project or whatever, if they were to be estimated to be running emissions, carbon emissions, above a certain level, then that'd be it. No, you would not get approval. You would not be able to start that project in the first place. That's basically what a carbon.
Do we just hear Finian's first time using a sound for comedic effect?
That was for serious effect there, I think. Sounds other than me taking sips of my beer. So now, this might surprise you though. Sarah Hanson-Young, bloody sour-faced cow that never seems to leave the Senate, she has said that they are not necessarily looking for a climate trigger. And they've said that they are willing to cooperate with Labor and pass these new laws, so long as they make a commitment to reducing pollution and stopping further logging of old growth forest. So, still not exactly the kind of negotiations that you'd want to do with the Greens, but probably better than, say, the power of this new regulator to just be able to come in and say, no, we're not allowing you to start this new gas project or whatever, simply because, climate change. Sorry, audio cut out there. I'm not sure exactly where I left off, but I'll just start the story on Ed Husick here. I was saying I don't think we've ever mentioned him so much before in one episode. If you didn't know, he's the Science and Industry Minister, which is an outer, junior ministry. But his department has released its new federal science objectives. Now, these intend to progress commitments like the Future Made in Australia, which is the program to basically create manufacturing grade based on green energy products here in Australia, and also to progress the AUKUS deal, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
So the National Science Statement and National Science and Research Priorities are a progression on those commitments, which priority committing local science to, addressing economic, social, geopolitical, defense, and national security challenges. Okay, now, part of this is going to enshrine Indigenous knowledge systems in Australian science. So they're going to be setting up consultation with various Indigenous groups to pick their brains on Indigenous knowledge systems and how they might contribute to Australia's science and industry when it comes to things like preparing for climate change and advances in artificial intelligence. That's right. So I don't know, maybe like we'll be inspired by the Aboriginal Stonehenge or something, or their great transport systems, or their agriculture and domestication of animals that Bruce Pascoe tells us about.
Their ability to invent a fucking wheel. I mean, like, dude, even the Atlatl is like, just like, it's not even theirs. It's more like fucking Pacific Islanders and fucking whatever creature came out of fucking Indonesia.
By the way,
to be fair, the Atlatl is basically everyone's but theirs.
Not only did Aborigines not domesticate any animal, they actually succeeded in undomesticating an animal, that being the dingo. Like, the dingo was a tame dog, and they, like, made it wild.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to Aboriginal news, or crime news, however you want to see it. This story really fucking triggered me this week. So the Northern Territory Police Commissioner, if you haven't heard of him, his name is Michael Murphy. And he actually just quit the police union. He was forced to, basically. By the way, they're called the new Northern Territory Police Association, just Northern Territory Police Union, essentially. Now, maybe you heard that the Garma Festival was on recently, held in the Northern Territory as a just, celebration of Aboriginal culture and all the usual crap. He attended. He was wearing, like, Aboriginal paint on his head, looking like a complete fuckwit. And he made this speech at Garma where he issued an apology on behalf of the Northern Territory Police for the history of injustices that had been perpetrated on the Northern Territory's Aboriginal population.
Oh, yeah, and then he got shit on for it.
He did, and fucking quite rightly so. Because
if always there was a hard man working hard from Dick Hardman
and look,
about this is like, apologized?
Yeah, because they're saying, hold on a second. If you're out there apologizing, basically what you're doing is confessing guilt, saying that that Northern Territory police officers are guilty of going out there and menacing Aboriginal people. And that's basically all that they've ever done. And that we need to apologize and grovel to you about that. Man, the fucking Aboriginal population of the Northern Territory owes an apology to Northern Territory police. That's the way it should be. For making their job an utter fucking misery. They should be apologizing to the cops. And I'm usually not very sympathetic to police, okay? But when it comes to them having to clean up the fucking mess that these abos make in Central Australia, Northern Australia, wherever they happen to be, it just fucking makes me sick. And it does make me have genuine sympathy and empathy for your average beat cop who is tasked with cleaning up this fucking mess. Apologize to them. Apologize for being a bunch of fucking dumb, lazy, degenerate pieces of fucking petrol-sniffing shit. Apologize to them for that. So, yeah, the police union was absolutely spot on in condemning him for this. And as a result, he had to resign from the police union. But look, that wasn't all. He went and released a statement where he said, I am incredibly disappointed by the statements made by the Police Association on Sunday in response to my apology to Aboriginal Territorians at the Garma Festival. I have a vision for the future of Northern Territory Police. And in order to achieve that future, we need to be able to understand and acknowledge our history, our shared mission to serve and protect all Territorians. Oh, fuck off. Who the hell wants you to speak like that? Certainly not your fucking subordinates, not the members of the union, not your fellow coppers, the rank and file, who you are supposed to speak on behalf of. They don't give a fuck. For God's sake. Why don't you actually go out there and say to these Aboriginal communities, for fuck's sake, clean your mess up, and then we wouldn't have to so heavily police your communities? That's what he should be saying.
Because that's hurtful, and it would suggest that they've got lower agency and like don't actually do that as self-starting people. And it's painful, and we've conditioned slowly the population to actually feel mental anguish when this subject is being brought up.
Right. Oh God. Okay, so the inquest into Cleveland Dodd's death, who apparently committed suicide, the first youth detainee in WA to do so, that's ongoing. We've got some scary stories here. So, I mean, you can see that they're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here. One of the examples they brought up, apparently a former superintendent told a detainee who he was about to leave and he had a job lined up. Apparently the superintendent said to him, "Oh, don't worry about that. You'll end up in adult prison by the end of the week." Apparently he said that to him. Another example we have is apparently a female detainee was made fun of by a youth custodial officer for being overweight. Now, where are the stories of like physical abuse here? They're non-existent. So the best they can do is come up with a story about some detainee being called fat. Ooh, what a fucking injustice that is. Jesus Christ. That's honestly about the worst of what they've been able to come up with in this inquiry so far. Okay, now quickly on, I've got this under drugs, but it's really just about alcohol. Chris Minns said that alcohol should be banned from Parliament. However, it should be, generally speaking, easier to access in New South Wales as a whole. So, he's talking about, like, sort of, you could say, the attack on nightlife, like that started after, you had like those one punch deaths. That's where, someone, gets knocked out in King's Cross or whatever, then their head hits the concrete and they die by accident.
Yeah.
And it's like, why should everyone else be punished, with lockdowns and lockouts and that kind of thing? I don't know. I went to Sydney not all that long ago, and I can't say I found it very difficult to find a place to go and have a beer. So I don't know. If those restrictions are there, it's always a case of like the out of control minority making it more difficult for everyone else, making it difficult for the people who actually can enjoy a drink responsibly. You just have violent.
The failures of social strength result in policies where the man is not allowed to have a steak for the fact that the baby cannot chew it.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, like what I'm often reminded of is how they wanted to, I think it might have been in Darwin, they wanted to open a Dan Murphy's. And there was this huge petition and like public uproar about it. And, I have to actually say, well, okay, I get that. I understand that. And maybe, opening up the Dan Murphy's is not such a good thing. Even though it would like probably provide better convenience and cheaper prices for a lot of people, it would unfortunately lead to a lot of out of control drunken violence because of the amount of Aboriginal people who will frequent it. And that's just a reality that you gotta come to grips with. So, yeah. Okay, on gambling. So there was sort of this show of unity with independents in federal parliament. People like Jackie Lambie, David Pocock, Andrew Wilkie were talking about how Labor continued to delay reform to gambling laws in Australia. Particularly with like sports betting, like the apps that you can use to bet on your sport games and whatever, and advertising. And I mean, like, I'm a guy who's able to block advertising pretty well in my life, but I've still seen, these gambling ads out there. So they are ubiquitous, I guess. Now, there was a report that was handed down by the late Labor MP, Peter Murphy. She died of cancer at the age of 50. And this was actually set up back in 2022, and the government's basically been dragging their feet ever since. The report basically said that, gambling is a severe social drain. It causes people's lives to fall apart. People kill themselves over this stuff. And the advertising is really getting to people at young ages. And, like, what I particularly don't like about it is, like, very often people are out watching a game. They're doing real-time bets on their phone while they're drinking. It's just so easy. It's so convenient, all while you're getting a bit pissed. People don't exactly make great decisions when that's happening, So, yeah. Say I'm in favor of a nanny state or whatever, but no, I mean, you're talking about these big companies profiting off people's misery, essentially. And yeah, if that means the government has to step in and be a bit of a big brother, then fine.
Yeah. Well, fuck it. You fucking apes apparently can't handle yourselves. And by the way, even if we clean it up, even if we have our perfect little state with our perfect little people next door, we're still going to have fuck-ups, and we're still going to have to use a trudgeon against you from time to time. Unfortunately, people still do just misbehave, even the best of us. It's about rates, people.
All right, I was going to talk a little bit about the Northern Territory election, because that is coming up in, less than 2 weeks. But look, as usual, we'll just do like a race of asides on it, and I'm going to save my coverage until we do that episode for you. If you haven't forgotten, there's the defamation action against John Pesutto, leader of the Liberal Party in Victoria, is still pending. It's coming up soon. This is where Maura Deeming is suing him for basically saying that she was associating with neo-Nazis at that, that anti-tranny rally that went on. And yeah, it looks like a lot of people are now being called in as witnesses. Former friends of John Pesutto included. So this is looking to be a real stinker. I'm looking forward to this. South Australian Liberal Party. Their leader resigned recently. Last week on Thursday, I believe. So David Spears, not to be confused with a host of insiders, but the guy of Scottish ancestry in the Liberal Party. He resigned saying that he has had a gutful. He said that he's been undermined by members of his own party, a lot of backstabbing and stuff, much of which stemmed from when the party lost the Dunstan by-election, which was last year, I think. And the reason why this was like such a blow for them was because Dunstan was actually a safe seat previously for the Libs. In fact, it was held by a former Liberal Premier, Steve Marshall. So, yeah, that was embarrassing, to say the least, that they lost a seat like that. So the bloodletting just kind of continued until David Spears stepped down. We've recently had Vincent Tarzia has been elected to the top job. So he said this is an opportunity to refresh and refocus the party. And he's denying the rumours that he was one of the MPs undermining the leadership of David Spears. I don't know about that. If you're a Liberal in South Australia, you've got a tough job. At the state level anyway, very rarely do you see the Liberals take power. The last time they were in, Stephen Marshall was only in for one term. So yeah, just doesn't last. New South Wales Liberal Party. Dominic Perrottet. He's now left the parliament. There's going to be a by-election for his seat. And he gave his valedictory speech the other day. In it, he actually said that the vaccine mandates, telling people that they had to get at least 2 jabs of whatever vaccine you might have chosen, he said that they were wrong. Now, in all fairness, he was not the premier who oversaw that. He did, of course, oversee, New South Wales through a period of COVID-related restrictions. But, he was not the one who brought in the big lockdowns and mandates. That prize went to Gladys Berejiklian, the so-called Armenian. So, we've said this. Vaccines saved lives, but ultimately, mandates were wrong. People's personal choices shouldn't cost them their jobs. Well,
they did.
Yeah. Would have been good if you said that when you were premier. But anyway, I guess we'll take what we can. All right. Just quickly for the Tasmanian Liberal Party. They recently, who's this guy? Brendan Blomley. He is known as a hard right conservative of the party. And he was expelled. You could say that he was, turfed out by the more moderate elements within the Tasmanian Liberals. And he's also the mayor of Clarence, which is in Hobart's eastern shore. And part of the reason, though, why he was expelled is because he refused to rule out running as an independent at the election. He was rumored to have been making such plans because he thought the party was continuing in too much of a Malcolm Turnbull-like direction. Him being a hard right conservative, he didn't like that. So now, as a way of sort of making amends, they're trying to bring him back into the party, and these efforts have been brought to a head by Erica Betts, who is also of the Conservative faction, and he's a real Liberal Party veteran, long-standing federal senator. Okay, last story for the states. In Queensland, the Labor Party is defending a new advertising campaign that they have just rolled out. This is costing $2.8 million. That is a lot of money for advertising. And this is all to win approval for their pumped hydro plan that is starting to be rolled out now. And, not a big surprise that this advertising is coming out only a few months away from an election. October 26th, in fact. It's not really that
rolling
far
right
away
fucking into it, yeah. 6 weeks? 6, 7 weeks?
No, it's about 2 months away. 2 and a bit. I think. Yeah. So
8 weeks then, yeah.
This project, this is to build 2 mega pumped hydro projects by 2035. I think we. Okay, guys. I'm sorry, we had some audio difficulties there. We cut out about 5 minutes of audio when I was just speaking into the ether. It's late, so we're actually going to cut this off now. We only had a couple of other stories to go through anyway, so we'll probably. One of them's on Brittany Higgins, and we'll definitely have a lot to say on that next week. So, yeah.
How many of you guys love Brittany Higgins stories and haven't had it fucking nailed into the ground, like our state is doing and our courts are doing?
We'll do that. We will do that next week. So, yeah. Meantime, check us out at theracer.biz. We hope to be with you in about a week's time. So, we'll see you then.